Humanly speaking, the Banner of Truth started because of a change of mind that Dr. Lloyd-Jones had. In 1955, 56, we were impoverished young people, recently married, living in Oxford, not knowing which way to go. And he, in his kindness to help us, said, well, come and assist me for a while at Westminster Chapel. And you can take a Bible study class Wednesday night. Good. But then a few weeks later, he rang me up and said, this is his big change of mind. He said, I think not a Bible class on Wednesday night. He never told me why, but I can see the reason why. He was doing that all the time, at the height of his powers. And I was only, 25? Who would have wanted to come when they... He said, you do church history on Wednesday night. I said, well, I've never seriously studied church history. You can do it, he said, you can do it. And this is the remarkable thing about Lloyd-Jones. He had the capacity of making people think they could do something who never thought they could. So I was thrown in at the deep end to speak on church history. Well, as I got into it, I got excited about it. I thought, this is a wonderful thing. And of course, the Evangelical Library was quite near. So at these Wednesday night meetings, different people came along, most of them Westminster Chapel people, but one man stood out. He was very tall and dark and in his 40s. And then he asked me, could I come and talk with him? He had some questions for me. So I did, and I remember the day very distinctly. We were out walking, and he turned to me and said, these things we've been talking about, the Reformation and the Puritan, why is it that people don't know them? I said to him, it's because the books that tell these things aren't available. That was the start of a conversation. And his story was, he wasn't long converted. He was praying that God would lead him to do something useful in his lifetime. He was quite affluent, his business had been successful, but he wanted now to live for Christ. He was a serious Christian. And so when I talked to him about books, curiously, we had thought that in the 18th century, God raised up patrons, and we thought of the Countess of Huntingdon. And I think we partly thought, well, maybe God will raise up a woman. He raised up a man. His name was Jack Cullum. So in 1957, Jack Cullum and I drew up a trust deed to start the Banner of Truth Trust. So it started really at Westminster Chapel, and then it grew from there. Other people gave valuable advice, Dr. Lloyd-Jones especially, and when the first books came out, actually they were stored at Westminster Chapel, and then Lloyd-Jones, of course, commended them and told people why he believed that they were valuable, and that gave a wonderful beginning. Whether people have a hunger for good books has very little to do with their education or their intellect. It's got a lot to do with their spiritual hunger. If they've got real spiritual hunger, they can read the Puritans. But a man may have a first-class university degree and not be able to read Lloyd-Jones or the Puritans, find them heavy and dull. It's all to do with spiritual appetite, isn't it?
And I think probably Lloyd-Jones understood this, that when he read the Puritans and Jonathan Edwards, where he really started, I think, he saw this fusion of piety and learning. Deep learning that was sanctified, biblical truth that was rich and that explored the depths of the human heart, and married together the truth of God as it was intended to impact and shape and style the life of the Christian. And that's our first concern for Banner Books.